The Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam of 2025 happened last week, where you have to make a game in 4 days based on a specific theme. This time, the theme was loop. Really? Just loop? This is a bit too vague, don't you think? Anyway, I needed to make a video, and doing a game jam is something very original on this channel, so I decided to join. And after thinking about this theme for around 30 minutes, I came up with 3 unique ideas. The first one, suggested by my mother, was to make a game in space where you have to loop around the galaxy while controlling a spaceship or something. To be honest, I'm glad I didn't do this one, since everybody and their mother ended up using this idea for the jam. The second one is a bit harder to explain. I got inspired by games of the past few jams where they let the player control some kind of mechanic like their inputs or the camera, which in turn affects the way they beat the game, and thought of using a for loop, with this big piece of code above the game where the player could literally type and control the for loop, and that would affect the level in some way, like spawning 2 enemies instead of 20. But I ended up liking the third idea more. The one I ended up deciding on was this: a 2D platformer where in each level you have to traverse the stage and brutally murder your grandpa, and then you go back to your time machine and escape. Now hold on, let me explain. I know this sounds weird, but have you heard of the grandfather's paradox? Apparently, a scientist came up with it a few decades ago. It states that if you traveled back in time and killed your grandpa before it had children, then one of your parents wasn't born, so you weren't born either. But if you were never born, then how did you kill your grandpa in the first place? This creates a paradox, aka an infinite loop. Get it? So with this concept laid out, I opened up a brand new Unity project and started working on the player movement, which is the most simple part. A basic jump and wall jump will do the trick. I also made this yellow platform that falls after you touch it. Then I started working on the graphics, so now's a good time to say that I had one additional goal before I started this jam. This was the first time where I was going to make the entire art of the game myself. I did a few drawing courses and bought a tablet with a pencil, but maybe I'll talk about this more in a later video. So yeah, I wanted to do all of the art, so I opened up Krita and started drawing the player sprite. I want this very simple, cartoonish art style. It shouldn't be anything too difficult, since I only have 4 days and I don't know what the heck I'm doing. After that, I drew the grandpa sprite, the time machine, and the boulder, all with the same simplistic art style. And I actually found this to be very relaxing. I really liked drawing the art for this game, it's nice. So I imported them to Unity and added all the functionality. Now when the player starts a level, the time machine's door opens and you have to kill the grandpa, in this case by using the boulder. Then you need to quickly travel back to your time machine to finish the stage. This also creates another loop, because you need to travel back and forth around the level. Now that we have all the basic mechanics ready, it's time to build the first level. But before we do that, we need some more assets. Let's get to work. I ended up making this long platform, this wood platform and a broken variant for the falling platform, this background, this coin, and this slope platform. And now it was time to assemble all of them in Unity. I ended up simplifying the first level, because one of the most frustrating things about playing a game jam game is getting confused and not knowing the mechanics. I also made you capable of collecting the coins. Finally, I added a timer on top of the screen, so you'll have a limited amount of time to run back to your time machine after killing the pop-ups, because you're breaking the fabrics of reality or something. I don't know, it doesn't have to make sense. After that, I started making all of the menus, the pause menu, the loose screen, and the windscreen. I added this family tree to the side in order to make things clear. It's kinda fun. So yeah, level 1 is complete. Looking back, day 2 was really productive. The most important thing in a jam is to make the game playable before adding more stuff, and I was able to do that fairly quickly. On day 3, I started with the main menu. I decided to name the game Pop-Up's Paradox. It sounds sketchy, so I like it. But currently, the game is a bit silent, so I found a playful song in Pixabay and added that in. Next, it was time for the sound effects. I added a lot of different sounds, so I'll just show them to you. Adding the appropriate sounds really makes a difference in the game's immersion. Next, I finally worked on the second level. I already had literally everything ready for this one, so it was pretty quick to make. I planned every level on my tablet before working on them, and that really helped in designing the layouts. I also did the third level, but I don't want to show everything. You can try the game for free on itch.io if you want. Day 4 was still not the final day, since the jam started at 6 PM on Wednesday, so I decided that I still had time to add 3 more levels based on a different theme. So I chose a city. And how would you murder your grandpa now? God, I love making games. After planning for a bit, I knew I had to create new assets for these stages, so I made a list of everything I needed and started drawing them in Krita. I kinda like how most of this turned out. Then I started building the first city level. These cones kill you instantly, so they function kinda like spikes. At first, this level was pretty difficult, so I shrink down the cones and changed their collisions to be a bit smaller. As a player, you'll probably not even notice this, but it feels a lot better to play. And with that, level 4 was complete. Now on the final day, I still did 2 more levels, but I don't want to spoil them, go give it a try. I also polished the game a bit after receiving some feedback. I tweaked the wall jump and the player's collider, I added a few more sound effects and a mute button to the game, and made a level select screen. And with a bit over an hour to spare, I submitted the game on itch.io and started playing other submissions. There were some pretty neat games here, like this one, where you're grabbing pieces of a snake and you have to loop around each puzzle until you hit your own tail. Or this one with a cute duck, where you need to make loops in the ice to create holes for some objects to fall into. Ultimately, I knew this was a strong competition, but I still wanted to finish with a good score. I'll show it right now on screen cause I still don't know it yet. Overall, my game ended up surprisingly polished. There were still a few issues, for example, the player slides around like a fish when you're on a slope, but besides that, the game's pretty fun to play, and there are no other bugs or issues. So yeah, that was my game for the GMTK's Game Jam of 2025. I'm working on some exciting stuff now, but it's still not ready to be shown yet. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!